Greetings for our audience. We're going to get started. We're live streaming this event. I think we're going to wait for the live stream to... Oh, it doesn't show there. Okay. We may want to double check. My name is Sekou Franklin, and we're going to get started. I'm with the Tennessee NAACP, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Caudle, the pastor of Greater Second Missionary Baptist Church, who will give opening remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Sekou, and we want to say good evening to everybody, all of our NAACP friends, and you all look beautiful tonight. It is a beautiful night in the city of Chattanooga. It's been a beautiful day all day today, and we're glad to have you here at the Greater Second Missionary Baptist Church here in the beautiful city of Chattanooga, East Tennessee. Now, you guys have been doing a lot of good work, and we thank you for your efforts and what you're doing, and all we want to say to you tonight is welcome. Glad to have you with us. God bless you.
Next, we'll hear from Dr. John Butler, the East Tennessee Regional Director of the Tennessee Conference of the NAACP. We will watch a welcome video of Dr. John Butler.
Hello, I'm Reverend Dr. John A. Butler, East Tennessee Vice President for the NAACP. Want to welcome everyone tonight, and I bring greetings on behalf of our President, Gloria Sweetlove, bringing greetings for this redistricting hearing for East Tennessee. Want everybody to feel comfortable and empowered to share tonight. We like to ask for a fair and transparent redistricting process. We also like to emphasize the importance of communities of interest and compliance with the Voter Rights Act. We want to thank Dr. Franklin, our state redistricting coordinator, Reverend Pierce, and the Chattanooga branch for their support, and all of our partners, the League of Women Voters of Tennessee, the League of Women Voters of Chattanooga, Civic Tennessee, Hamilton County Voters Coalition, Tennessee Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Tennessee Black Caucus of State Legislators, Free Hearts, Unified Ed, and the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. Once again, I want everybody to feel free to share tonight and to feel empowered to make your thoughts and feelings known. Once again, greetings from the NAACP.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Ms. Teresa Turner of the Hamilton County Voters Coalition.
Good evening. On behalf of the Hamilton County Voters Coalition, we're glad to be a part of what is happening across the state and have this opportunity to be in coalition with the League of Women Voters at the state level, as well as the statewide NAACP and Civic Tennessee and all the other groups that have come together to make sure that tonight is an opportunity for the public to understand redistricting. It is in our interest here in Hamilton County in particular that we participate in the hearing process that will go on hopefully tomorrow at the County Commission meeting beginning at 9:30, and following that meeting, making sure that your voices are put into public record, but also that you communicate back in your communities that maps are out. We have maps that were shared with us last week, and we believe if you go online right now, there are an additional map for 11 districts that have been shown. So it is important that the community have at least 14 days to respond to those maps. So it's important that we make sure that those maps give us what we need, which is an opportunity to make sure that those maps are compacted in an equitable manner or not compacted in an unequal manner, so that we don't get what we've been getting in the past, which is gerrymandering. So we appreciate you being here. Welcome to Hamilton County, Chattanooga, and we're pleased to hear all that we can hear and hopefully get our public officials to respond and slow down this process. There's still time. Thank you.
Thank you. This event is co-sponsored with the Tennessee Black Caucus of State Legislatures. Representative Yusuf Hakeem recorded the video for us. Just as a note that the legislature is in a special legislative session, so he's sending his remarks through a video.
Representative Yusuf Hakeem from District 28. I am honored to have this opportunity to welcome you to this much-needed hearing on redistricting. It is being presented by a host of noted individuals and organizations, but the most important element of this process is your understanding of the impact we together can have on the future of our community and state. This is the opportunity for real change, so let your voices be heard and appreciated. We are the change we want. Thank you, and God bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters,
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to make a few comments about redistricting, and then we're going to watch an overview of the redistricting process by Doug Himes, who's the staff attorney for the ad hoc committee on redistricting by the Tennessee House of Representatives. As mentioned earlier, my name is Sekou Franklin. I'm with the Tennessee State Conference of the NAACP. I'm also a political science professor at Middle Tennessee State University. Thank you for attending this hearing. Before moving forward, I want to thank Greater Second Missionary Baptist Church. Dr. Caudle, thank you for opening your church to us. I also want to thank Mr. Dave Moore and the IT team, who is leading on this effort as well. The other sponsoring organizations are the League of Women Voters. Debbie Gould is here. Civic Tennessee, Mattia Powell is here. Both are executive directors of the organization. Thank you to Hamilton County Voter Coalition, the Tennessee Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Free Hearts, the Chattanooga Hamilton County NAACP. Special thanks to Reverend Ann Pierre as well. League of Women Voters of Chattanooga, the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, and also the American Association of University Women of Tennessee as well. Talked to also the Urban League of Chattanooga. They also send their regards as well. Before moving forward, I want to acknowledge any elected officials in the room. Are there any elected officials in the room? If you could stand and state your name. Thank you. Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Kathleen Jeter, Hamilton County District 5 County Commission. Anyone else? Okay. So every 10 years after the U.S. Census is taken, as you well know, congressional districts, state legislative districts, and local districts, including county commission seats, city councils, if they're single-member districts, and school boards undergo this process called redistricting. The redistricting process entails the redrawing of political boundaries in accordance with population shifts and changes. This process, it is a constitutional mandate for all connected or contiguous districts in the United States. For Tennessee, this applies to hundreds of legislative districts, and it is applicable to the 9 congressional districts, the 99 House districts, and the more than 30 Senate districts in the state legislature. The different districts must be relatively equal in population and comply with the one person, one vote principle. That is a constitutional mandate that actually emerged out of a case here in Tennessee called Baker versus Carr. And redistricting also, just to emphasize, is fundamental to what is considered to be fair voting rights and equal protection. It is a critical part of the Voting Rights Act and Voting Rights Act oversight, as well as critical to meeting the letter and the spirit of the 14th and 15th Amendments. Having said this, community participation and involvement in the redistricting process is fundamental to a democracy that is functional, fair, and participatory. This hearing is intended to gather input in East Tennessee in co-sponsorship with the Tennessee Black Caucus. We're compiling testimonies for a larger report or white paper that will be submitted to the legislature. For East Tennessee, this conversation is particularly important, in part because Chattanooga, in particular, has been ground zero for a lot of voting rights disputes, including disputes that are brought into the Justice Department. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Doug Himes, who is the staff attorney for the Ad hoc Committee on Redistricting in the House of Representatives for Tennessee, and we will watch an instructional video on the redistricting process.
Good evening. My name is Doug Himes, and I serve as counsel to the House Select Committee on Redistricting. Sorry I can't join with you in person tonight, but did want to share some important information about the work of the Select Committee. The committee was appointed by Speaker Sexton in August of this year. It is comprised of 16 members from both parties and from all three grand divisions. At the committee's September meeting, the committee adopted guidelines that will be used by the House in drawing the 99 districts for the State House of Representatives. Also at the September meeting, the committee adopted guidelines on the submission of outside plans. Any plans that you wish to submit to the committee must be received by noon on November 12, 2021. Plans can be submitted through any member of the House of Representatives and must include all districts for the type of plan that is being drawn. This is just a general redistricting timeline. I draw your attention again to November 12th. That is the deadline for the submission of outside plans. Also, on January 11th, 2022, the second session of the 112th General Assembly reconvenes. In a typical decade, redistricting legislation is addressed at the start of session. These are the redistricting bills. These bills will carry the House, Senate, and congressional plans. They are currently in the Public Service Subcommittee of State Committee of the House. You can keep up to date with these on the webpage of the Redistricting Committee under the tab Plans. Speaking of the webpage, it's the best way to stay up to date with us. It lists the members of the committee. It has the documents that the committee has been provided and has gone over, including a malapportionment table, county growth tables. It also will be the place where you can keep an eye on the bills as they proceed through the process. And I hope you find it useful. And finally, just our contact information. I know that Speaker Johnson and I would always appreciate hearing from you. Again, I wish I could be with you tonight. I can tell you that the State House is committed to adoption of fair and constitutional plans. So I hope you have a great evening, and I look forward to hearing from you in the near future. And
So before we begin hearing from you all, are there any questions about what you heard, any clarifications that you all need about what you heard in terms of the process that happens with the state? Okay. Well, in that case, I believe that we are ready to hear some testimony, and we would like to have anyone who wants to give some comments to come up here and speak, and plan on spending about 3 minutes. We're trying to make sure that we give everyone a chance to speak and give you adequate opportunity. And this information is going to be collected, and we will be sharing it directly with the state legislature, legislative committee, the House committee that you just heard about, and the Senate Redistricting Committee, and they will have this information so that they can use it as part of their input in how to develop better maps for the state. So can we begin with Audrey Ramsey?
Thank you, and thank you again for this opportunity to express my concerns. But before I get started, I would like to take a second here and send condolences to our former Secretary of State, Colin Powell, who died yesterday of COVID-19 complications. Again, good evening, and I am really humbled by the idea of standing here and speaking before you all about redistricting and why that is important to me. I grew up here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, not too far from here in Foxwood Heights, and I left in 1989, and when I returned in 2018, I found the whole area completely different. And redistricting. I've been around long enough to know that urban renewal is the new regenification, and now we are faced with redistricting. I recall as a young girl growing up not too far from here, riding my bike up and down the streets and over what is now called Old Town and going over the ridge, and this church was predominantly white, and I went to Brainerd High School when the band wore Confederate soldier uniforms. But when the few African Americans who attended that school complained about that, the administrators recognizing that it was offensive to the African American students, it was changed. So there's that possibility that we can make a difference and we can change. So today, the population demographics have changed, and so has the overall population in Hamilton County. I am concerned that Brainerd High School will become the next Tyner Academy, where students walked out of a crumbling building and infrastructure. Tyner was predominantly white and now predominantly black. Tyner parents and students were told a new school would be built. In the meantime, Red Bank Elementary, Battle Academy, Hamilton East Elementary were built, and the population in those areas are becoming predominantly white, while districts 4 and 5 in the county are predominantly black, and Brainerd is in District 5. We as voters must pay attention to this redistricting process. Redistricting is important because it will have future implications on our schools, affordable child care, affordable housing, hospitals and medical facilities, criminal justice system, voting precincts, and access to those voting precincts. I am here, and what I am especially keeping a close watch on is the layered systemic issues. As you may or may not know, Hamilton County is in the process of proposing new lines to be drawn, and that's going to include an 11th district. If this proposal is accepted through a resolution and enacted, that will mean that the school executive administrators will be drawing up new districts to match the county. And as it stands right now, there are 11 districts being proposed based on the census of Chattanooga in Hamilton County. Now, the census blocks are showing us that the heart of the African American population is in District 5 and 4. And the county has jurisdiction over the city, meaning over the taxes, affordable housing, quality schools for our children, voting precincts, and accessibility to polls. So all these factors are going to make a difference in our lives. So now I feel that our voices, this is the time for our voices to be heard if we're going to make a difference, if we're serious about equitable distribution throughout the population with regards to our school systems, with regards with healthcare facilities, where those disparities currently lie. If you look at District 11, the proposed district, that is going to be considered a swing state when it comes to voting because the demographics is so close. It's 50-50. That's 19% Hispanic, 28% Black, and 49% white. And overall, the population would be, or that population today should afford us at least 3 representatives on the county commission. but we also run the risk of losing a county commissioner representative with District 5, and then, of course, 11 being a toss-up. So these are my concerns overall of what redistricting will mean and its impact on us, but more importantly, we have to ensure that we have access and people are getting out to the polls to vote, and register to vote is key. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that testimony. We have some prepared remarks, but we wanted to give folks here tonight, I know there's some of you, there's a lot of you here in the audience, so we wanted to give you an opportunity to be able to come up here and kind of share your thoughts about what you feel about redistricting, not only locally, also statewide. So we just want to hear from you all. It's really important that we share with our elected officials what we want to see out of this process. Because otherwise, we're just going to have a process that they dictate. So we have a couple of folks. So if you guys want to come, you want to come up first? And then maybe you'll be next. How about that? Okay, great. Oh, nope, she stepped back. How about you come up first and then you're second? Come on. Make sure when you speak, state your name and state, where you're from. And if you want to state your districts, you can, but at least your name and where you're from. So thank you.
Good evening to everyone. And I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Betty Maddox Battle, and I live in District 5. And I just recently relocated. I was born and raised here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but moved to Atlanta out of high school. And I am a concerned citizen. After the Civil War, African American and other minorities were denied access to the ballot box through such laws as poll taxing, grandfather clause, literacy tests, and character reference laws. This redistrict barriers prevented minorities from exercising their most fundamental civil right, the right to vote. In 1965, when Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, it was intended to make the right to vote for all persons a reality. I am a concerned citizen. I am also a grieving mother of a son that was murdered in Atlanta in 1993. We are dealing with some serious issues in our community today. As a grieving mother, I will not stand back. I will not sit back. I will not be silent with what is going on. With the redistricting, it will affect us all. However, it will affect the Black community disproportionately the most. However, my question to anyone who can answer this question on the committee, and my question is, how will this proposed 11th redistrict map impact African Americans here in Hamilton County who are now the minority ability to vote? If somebody would please answer this question for me, I can be reached at grievingrelatives.org. Thank you so much for listening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marie Mott, community activist and organizer, and I'm a Chattanooga native that grew up in East Chattanooga, specifically District 8. And I am concerned because I grew up with pride that I came from the Bushtown Churchville community, which is historic, a historic African American community that had power. My grandfather was a community activist that helped Dr. Tommy Brown in the 70s actually ensure that home ownership increased in District 8. And so passing on the torch that he did, not only to his children, but the torch that was passed on to me, I'm very concerned that the direct impact of redistricting will not only impact the African American community disproportionately, but also our poor. One of the things that we have to understand is we have to go back, because none of these tactics are new. When we look at the consolidation of what happened, of pitting against Dr. Tommy Brown, against Joanne Favors, and the consolidation of state house districts, we have already seen in the rear view what it looks like from I hate to say it, a Republican legislature overcrowd, what it means when our Republicans seek to not only dismantle Democratic votership, but as well as the firm reality that we as African Americans have seen the bulk of what we have experienced in resources of things that have happened have come overwhelmingly from having the right to vote. And we didn't get that for free. I mean, if you even think about how we have representation at the city council, we had to sue the city to be able to accomplish that. So every single inch of progress that we have fought for it. We bled for it, we marched for it, we petitioned for it, and we had to sue the government to ensure that it was treating us fairly, even though the law stated it should do it, whether we're talking about the 1964 Civil Rights Act or the Constitution. And so I am highly concerned at just the rapid pace of how this has happened without there even being a study presented from any of our county commissioners as far as understanding the impact of what this is going to do to dwindle African American majority votership within districts. And then the further impact that that's going to have of this process is not going to happen again for another decade. Do we understand? I'm 33. And so this is literally going to impact about 2 generations before we could possibly ever recover any sort of damage of losing any of our districts, as well as the fight that we would have to have if we consider some of the tactics that happen with redistricting, cracking, stacking, and packing, of how we can split people within districts to dilute individuals, which makes it harder for you to have a majority within those districts, how you can stack people. And so the question that I have is, what sort of study did the county commission do to actually look at the impact that this would not only have to Black people, but our Latino community, the poor community, to students, the fact that this is going to directly impact our education system. We only have one African American that sits on the school board. So when I think about the virtual impact of, look at the condition of the Black community as it sits right now. Look at the condition of poverty overwhelmingly for our children. Family, I'm just saying, regardless of whether you're white, Black, female, male, it doesn't matter. If you care about our students, if you care about poor families, if you care about the people, then we need questions answered as to what is going to be the impact to the Black, minority, and the poor and impoverished here in our city and in our county.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Alexander, and I live in Chattanooga. And I assume a lot of people here are from Hamilton County. And I don't have the expertise or the knowledge to draw these maps that this man said that we have the ability to draw maps and submit them. I can't do that. but I can see some problems from people who have drawn maps. And I'm going to use this. I wish I had had a marker to make this better. I know you can't see it, but this is State Senate District 10. That's my district. It doesn't matter who sits in that seat. This person represents me. But he also represents, you can't see it, I know, but this is the district. It starts way down here, it goes way down there, and then it comes up here and goes way over there, the end of Bradley County. I live down here, and I'm represented by somebody who takes a little slice of the bottom of Hamilton County, and then comes way over here to the far end of Bradley County. I have a lot more in common with everybody in this room. My needs are like yours, more than somebody that lives in Charleston, Tennessee, which is the far northeast end of Bradley County. That doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't make sense. And I don't know how to draw a map, but surely we can do better than this. The same thing, I know you're all familiar with Congressional District 3, the hourglass. I have a lot more in common, we all do, with the people down here, and all of this area, greater Chattanooga. If we could all be together, instead of being, you know, it's an hourglass, you can see that. And way up here at the Kentucky line is who this person represents along with me. And not the people in greater Chattanooga, not the people that we work with and that come in and use our parks and come to our festivals and share our city. But we are, I feel like my representation is diluted when maps are drawn like this and like this. This doesn't make any sense. And I don't know how to do a map, but surely we can do better than this. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I have to say, what we've heard at some of our other hearings is sort of the last statement about the your famous hourglass-shaped congressional district. What we've heard from the people who live in Oak Ridge and Knoxville is exactly the same frustration, that they're at the top of the hourglass and that they don't get the representation they need. And what they really want is to go back to what used to be the map. You know, congressional districts, all these districts can change after every census. And it used to be that Knoxville and Oak Ridge were together in the same congressional district, which makes sense in the sense that they have a lot of shared economic interests. Oak Ridge and UT Knoxville obviously have a lot of dealings with each other. There's a lot of other issues that connect them. So, you know, a lot of what you've already said resonates with other places in the state as well. Are there other comments from people in the audience? Okay, well, in that case, shall we go on? We have a number of video comments. Do you want to start that second?
Yes, we have about we have a number of testimonies, particularly from people outside of Hamilton County, and we're going to do a rolling video of those testimonies, and we will start, I believe, right now. Yeah.
The Unity Group of Chattanooga, and throughout this redistricting process, one is minority vote dilution. This region has a history and a pattern of discriminating against minority voters, whether that was changing the charter of the city in the early 1900s, which essentially denied fair representation until the 1970s at both the state and city level. The case of Brown versus Chattanooga, where we had to change the at-large form of voting to the district formats where we could be fairly represented, to challenging things that have come down, such as voter ID law. We can never forget the case of Ms. Dorothy Cooper, who at 96 was denied the right to vote. And as we look at these districts, we are mindful that in 2010, they merged the 28th and 29th legislative districts, which essentially took away a state House of Representatives seat for the city of Chattanooga. And the state senator that represented this region, that area was essentially gerrymandered when we stretched and extended the boundaries up toward Bradley County. And that meant that we had to share the vote with communities that don't align and have the same interests. And so throughout this process, we have been mindful that as they are creating these districts, as they are redrawing and rezoning the maps, we reminded them that we don't want to see the vote diluted. We reminded them that we do know what cracking is and packing and stacking and some of these other tools of voter suppression. And we have called for a street-by-street analysis of redrawing these districts. We have called for them to be mindful of the school zones because we know when they embark on the redistricting process at the county level, as a de facto consequence, that's going to affect the city zones and also the school zones. And the school zones are going to determine what and where the attendance zones are, especially in the Tyner middle school and Tyner high school area, that zone. And so from our perspective, we are very appreciative that we have gotten a more open and transparent process that we've had in the past, though we still have some miles to go. And at the state level, we can begin by passing the Fair Mapping Act, where we can put and enshrine public input and public participation in the timely releasing of maps into the legal statutes. And there's also one more unintended consequence when we do redistricting. As we are changing these zones, as a consequence, you're going to be changing polling places. And so we want to be mindful, just from a fair electoral process standpoint, that we are not closing polling places unwarrantedly or purging names from the rolls, or cutting early voting times. These are sort of things that are a byproduct of the redistricting process. And so in the days and weeks going forward, we will have to be mindful of that. But ultimately, because of the Voting Rights Act, because of Brown versus Chattanooga, because of those other constitutional provisions and safeguards, we urge all the policymakers and all the map drawers to be mindful not to create any unneeded barriers and obstacles and things of that nature which will hinder and obstruct, deny, and abridge the right to vote through minority vote dilution. And so thank you. We are hopeful that this process will be fair and impartial and really give some continuity to the voters of this region. Thank you. Greetings, I'm Eric Atkins, co-chairperson of the Unity Group of Chattanooga.
I'm sorry that I am unable to be with you in person today, but as the founder of the Hamilton County Voters Coalition, and on behalf of the coalition and its members, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters of Tennessee, as well as Chattanooga, the Tennessee Conference of the NAACP, and the Chattanooga Hamilton County NAACP, as well as Civic Tennessee and others for hosting this event. The Hamilton County Voter Coalition is very happy that this event is taking place. It is truly needed. And I understand that it's going to be throughout East Tennessee, and that's commendable. What I would like to share with you is when I first learned about the redistricting process this year, I immediately contacted our co-chairs and the administrators of the Hamilton County Voter Coalition And based on my experience in 1957 through 1961 as a civil rights advocate and participating in the civil rights movement, in my hometown of Tuskegee, Institute, Alabama, and Macon County, I experienced personally gerrymandering. So when I learned about the redistricting process taking place this year, I immediately, as I indicated earlier, got in touch with the members, the administrative membership of our organization, and said, we need to get involved in this. We need to get our communities involved in it, and we need to attend the next Hamilton County Commissioners meeting to let them know that we want public involvement, transparency, and fair maps drawn for Hamilton County. And that's how we got started. Every week, we would call residents, urging them to come out. We would ask people to speak before the commissioners, to let them know the importance of making this a public event. So eventually, the Hamilton County commissioners decided that they would have a workshop open to the public following their weekly meetings. And we have noticed a significant increase in the participation of the residents in Hamilton County. In fact, at the last meeting, the county attorney said this was the first time he had ever experienced this level of public participation in redistricting. Again, I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for having this event. And if there's any way that the Hamilton County Voter Coalition can assist in this redistricting process at the state level, just let us know. We will do everything possible to make this a successful event. And thank you.
Hello, my name is Thessala White. I am the Vice President of the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Branch NAACP. I am also the State Chair for the AXO program here in Tennessee. I reside in Chattanooga. I want to raise the question of gerrymandering in Tennessee. In looking closely at the congressional district maps, what stands out is that East Tennessee has 2 gerrymandering districts, the 4th and the 3rd congressional district. Understandably, the courts have allowed for partisan gerrymandering to occur as an outcome of the redistricting process. But even still, it is important to raise objections to it. I am asking state lawmakers to not draw gerrymandered congressional districts. Gerrymandering, especially when motivated by partisan interests, can stack the deck in favor of one party and divided communities of interest. As a leader who advocates for our youth, how will this affect our future generations? Again, thank you for allowing me to make my comments.
Hello there. My name is Brady Watson. I'm a Knoxville resident, actually standing outside the Cordell Hall building here in Nashville, where I just gave public comments at the redistricting committee hearing. But I am a resident who's very concerned about the current redistricting process. I've been lucky enough to be a part of several different electoral campaigns over the years, and now work for an advocacy organization that does a great deal of work dependent on fair redistricting and fair representation. So in the last round of redistricting in 2011, the city of Knoxville was divided into 3 state senate districts. Today, Knoxville has around 190,000 residents, which would fit nicely into a single senate district that requires around 200,000. So it makes sense to have one state senator that is beholden to all of the residents of Knoxville. Unfortunately, the current makeup of the Senate district dilutes the voting power of our diverse city. And again, that would be better represented by a single senator. While Knoxville shares close geographic proximity to the other more rural and suburban parts of Knox County. Our city has very different and unique needs as opposed to those other parts of the county around us, whether that be education, healthcare, or our quality public schools. That again represents the need to have a single Senate district encompassing all of Knoxville. While the city of Knoxville certainly deserves to be kept whole, certainly so do other cities, including Farragut, Halls, Karnes, and Powell that are within Knox County, and it would be simple enough to draw a district that would incorporate all those smaller cities and other unincorporated areas of Knox County as well in a single district. In closing, our scruffy city is defined by our love for the outdoors, green spaces, quality public schools, and close proximity to the Great Smoky Mountains. We also love the Vols, even though, of course, most of the rest of our state shares that affinity as well. We wouldn't want to divide Neyland into thirds, so there's no reason to divide our city into thirds either. So please consider keeping our district, our city whole, and so that we have a state senate that truly represents all of the diverse folks who call Knoxville home. Thank you.
My name is Elfrida Cook, and I live in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I come here on behalf of the Tennessee State Conference of the NAACP Anderson County Oak Ridge branch, where I am a member. The holding of these hearings is an important step to expand access to real representation in Tennessee. In my brief comments, I want to emphasize how important it is for the state legislature to reconsider how redistricting impacts East Tennessee, especially Anderson and Knox counties. Oak Ridge is the central city of Anderson County, and Knoxville is the central city of Knox County. Despite the proximity of these cities, they are in separate congressional districts. The central cities in Anderson and Knox counties are less than 25 miles apart. We belong to the same regional council. In fact, the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth places Anderson and Knox counties in the same regional council. The Knox County Regional Forensic Center investigates the drug epidemic in both counties. And according to the U.S. Census, Knox and Anderson counties belong in the same metropolitan statistical area. Despite the shared identities of Knox and Anderson counties, they are in separate congressional districts. This is wrong. Knox County is in District 2, and Anderson County is in a gerrymandered Congressional District 3. Note that District 3, where Anderson County is located, also includes the city of Chattanooga, which is 108 miles from Oak Ridge. My request is that this issue be addressed by the state's redistricting committees. Anderson and Knox counties, given their shared identities, should be in the same congressional district. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kyle Carrasco from Cleveland, Tennessee, which is located in Bradley County. In the 4th Congressional District. And I've been looking over these maps, the congressional maps, and I have some concerns about the 4th District. First of all, Middle Tennessee State University is located in our district. This is concerning to me because MTSU's student population by itself is larger than Meigs, Bledsoe, Van Buren, Sequatchie, Grundy, and Moore counties. This student population is entirely different than the population of these rural counties in the eastern part of our district. Not only that, but in addition to that, MTSU is located closer to Nashville and Davidson County, yet the map that it is drawn in extends all the way to Bradley County and comes to the edge of Hamilton County. These two counties are located 2 hours away from Middle Tennessee. This is very problematic to me. The 4th Congressional District encompasses Middle and East Tennessee counties and covers 2 time zones. I believe that the 4th District deserves fair representation, and this must entail honoring the communities of interest. So as the community reports back to the state legislature, I ask that you committee members please take these concerns into account as you report back. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Hello, my name is Denzel Caldwell, and I am the Electoral Justice Researcher and Educator with the Highlander Research and Education Center. Highlander is located in East Tennessee. It is one of the premier training centers for activists in the South. Electoral justice is a concept that prioritizes marginalized people in the political process. It lifts the need for participatory democracy, an adherence to voting rights, and champions the voice of the voiceless. Redistricting is important for democracy and transparency. We can point to the infamous Tuskegee redistricting plan that led to the Gamillion versus Lightfoot case that attempted to deny African Americans the ability to fully participate in the political process. I am asking this hearing to make a specific recommendation to the legislature. That is, the legislature must publish the redistricting maps online and give Tennesseans ample time to review them. We should also be able to identify the various groups that are submitting the maps. By publishing the maps, we can determine whether powerful interests are exercising undue influence on the redistricting process. By giving ample time to review the maps, some civil rights groups propose 2 weeks, it will allow for appropriate input and instill confidence in the redistricting process. I make this request specifically to the authorizing committees and their staff. Again, thank you for giving me the chance to make a testimony. We look forward to hearing more about the redistricting process.
Hello, my name is Trinity Henderson, and I am a student at MTSU. I'm here on behalf of the of the Participatory Redistricting Project, which is under the umbrella of the Lord's Committee for Civil Rights under Law. I would just want to say that redistricting affects whether or not the nation's diverse communities will be represented in legislative bodies, and the holding of these hearings gets us one step closer to real representation in Tennessee. But this is unfortunately not enough public input, and the process will only be fair if there's an opportunity for open and public participation once the legislature convenes in January. So we cannot forget the long history of voter discrimination and disempowerment that largely stemmed from excluding members from this redistricting process. And one approach that legislators have, or some have, is to split up college campuses. And as a college student, I would like to emphasize that college campuses cannot be split up in the redistricting process. By doing so, you will weaken or water down our voice in our own community. And youth happen to be some of the most lively advocates for political change, and the goal is to give them a voice in their community, not take one away. So if you remember anything from what I just said, please remember that the process must be open, transparent, and fair. And secondly, that college campuses must be kept together if we are willing to give them a voice in their own communities. So thank you all for letting me speak today and just being so passionate about improving this redistricting process.
Hi, my name is Rosa Ponce. I live in Clarksville, Montgomery County, and I am a volunteer at Workers' Dignity in Nashville. Thank you for letting me record these comments and send them on. Latinos are important to consider in the redistricting process because they have experienced the fastest rate of growth here in Tennessee. In the last decade, there has been a 39% growth of the Latino population in Tennessee. In Shelbyville, Latinos are already 23% of the population. In every congressional district, the Latino population increased. The most significant increases occurred in the 4th, 5th, and 9th congressional districts. The 4th district reaches into East Tennessee. The Latino population also saw an increase in the Tri-Cities. In Hancock County, which is in Northeast Tennessee, Latinos grew by over 200% in the last decade. In Knox County, the growth was 90%. In Bradley County, it was 81%. And in Hamilton County, it was 80%. So given these changing demographics, it is important to emphasize that this redistricting process must be open and transparent. This means publishing materials and instructions in Spanish, and if necessary, also conducting outreach in the Spanish-speaking communities. I want to point out that when the Voting Rights Act was renewed in 1975, it offered protections for non-English speakers. So I am asking you to take these recommendations to the state's redistricting committees because Latinos are here to stay. And we will most certainly impact state and local politics in the next 2 decades. Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that before we move on, I think that was the end of our recorded testimony, and we've had some folks that have been able to share tonight, but I wanted to open up the floor again if anybody else has felt called or to speak or to share their concerns about their districts. I want to give people another opportunity to do so. So if there's anybody else that's open to making public comments, we'll open the floor. Did you want to speak too? We'll have Ms. Theresa come up, and then then if you want, you don't want to. Okay.
Thank you for this opportunity again. I forgot to mention, and I wanted to be clear that in Hamilton County, we have asked, or we've been told by our county legislator and chair lady that there would be a school board meeting, a joint school board meeting with the county commissioners to talk about the changes in the district maps. And we're hoping that that takes place, but that has not taken place. It's going to be significant if the district numbers are changed, that parents in particular understand the important impact. Commissioner Jeter, you might want to speak to that, but in bottom line, I think is one of the important pieces that creates some urgency around this issue also.
Good evening. I want to thank everyone for, first of all, hosting this important opportunity for us, not only here in Hamilton County, but in East Tennessee. I honestly don't know where to start because I came tonight because, like all of you, I have my concerns. And so this was an opportunity for me to, one, be engaged, not only is what's happening here locally in our county, but also what's happening here in Hamilton County and what that means at the state level. But listening to the comments, I sit on that board, and so I know that they're directed to myself and my colleagues. I will start with the fact that what you just stated in terms of the county commission meeting with the school district, that was stated at the last meeting. I don't know, honestly, if that's going to take place. Many of you know that I tried to be as transparent and honest, and I'll just keep it real. I don't think it's going to happen. That is a question that will be raised tomorrow at tomorrow's meeting, so I would encourage, if that is something of importance to you, to begin contacting the rest of the county commissioners and begin to express the immediate urgency of us to proceed with that joint meeting. I also will say that some of you expressed about the concerns of what the impact of the redistricting process will look like here in Hamilton County towards Black and brown people. And to be quite honest, just before coming to this meeting, I got off a phone call with one of my committee members, and it doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. The 11 district map option, not only for District 5, is concerning. I don't know if you guys have recently went on our website and looked at the recently proposed, but what they're doing is just blatantly disenfranchising people in that Tyner community. They are diluting voter, what you guys have stated here tonight, diluting the voter power that's in that community. They're not going by comptroller's rules, which is to keep those communities compact. That's specifically for District 5, but we can go on to what's happening in terms of the changes made in District 4 and the removal of East Lake and Alm Park and what that does to the black and brown votes in Hamilton County. And just to be frank, that affects District 5. So I stand here, I stand here, and maybe it's a good thing we're in the church, because I'm lost. And I look at Dennis, I look at you, Marie, I look at you, Teresa. I need your help. I mean, you guys don't have to convince me, but when I'm telling you, I'm standing here as real as I can be, and I'll be going home tonight and getting in my prayer closet and on my knees, because I'm at battle. I mean, I don't know what to do, but when I tell you guys that it is being intentionally, what they're doing is being intentional, and it will, when you want to ask the real questions, it is going to hurt us. But it's going to take, I need you guys. I need you guys to show up in numbers and forces. Email me, but email the rest of them. Now is the time. At last week's meeting, it was brought up that a resolution be brought forth. So they're not holding on, they're not waiting. They're proceeding to bring a vote. I will say in closing that the resolution will come forth tomorrow, but I will make an announcement that we delay our vote to November 10th. That gives us 1 month to continue to have public input, public engagement, and I'm hoping that I can have as much community involvement to help stand with me on that. I appreciate you guys. And my email is jeterdistrict5@gmail.com. My telephone number is 208-5386. Whether you're in District 5 or not, please contact me. Thank you. Mike helps, sorry. What they did is that they specifically, at first, Bestie Shepherd has not historically been in District 5. It's currently not in District 5. And it's currently in District 7, you're correct. And it would make sense, I mean, Bestie Shepherd is that when you talk about community of interest, it does make sense that Bestie Shepherd be placed in District 5. That is a feeder school to Tyner Academy and Tyner Middle. So what I have requested is that if they, that they follow natural boundaries, that Lee Highway is a natural boundary, that they extend that all the way to Lee Highway. What they have done is that they specifically carved out that Bestie Shepherd area, and you can see it clearly on the map. But everybody, just specifically to the left of that the Bestie Shepherd community and to the right of that Bestie Shepherd community is still in the new District 10. So that's it's not compact, and it breaks up that voting power and dilutes it even more. And those people, they lose out. It does not keep that community intact at all. Yes. Yes. Potentially, that's what yes. That's the one that they want to go with, yes. So you can identically have somebody on one street be District 5 and on the other street be District 10 or District 7, and that makes no sense. That's wrong. And then I'll come to you. Well, that's what they're saying, but I mean, to me, data speaks for itself. I mean, that cannot be a swing district at all. When you look at the statistics in that community, one of my concerns, what has given us the great majority for that district, is that when it has been historically in District 4, it has given us the greater power because it has been in District 4. But by now moving into District 11, you've got to now look at the data and look at that voting power for East Lake and Alm Park. A lot of those residents in that community may not necessarily be voting individuals. So when you look at the percentage of the Lookout Mountain community and they go out to vote, then is it really a swing district? To me, that is not. So that's what they're saying. It's not what I'm saying.
Is this working? Okay. Good afternoon. I'm R.C. Reeves. I just had two quick questions and maybe a comment. How do we present a map that is more inclusive to the areas that we're talking about that would include those? Because I guess I'm just kind of confused of what's the next step for us to get to resolution.
So I've heard people in the community saying it's too late. It's not too late. To me, the fat lady ain't sung yet. So I think you guys, number one is if you can go on Dave's Redistricting. I mean, there's as Sharon stated, I'm not a map drawer, right? But there are people out here that you can get with, and you can go on. Dave's Redistricting is a free website. You can go on there. You can play with maps. Contact me. I mean, I've got a committee. I specifically and intentionally put a committee together to help me during this process. I have different map options that I'm playing with because GIS is, you would think the GIS office is here to work with us, right? They're not. And so I'm having to come up with my own resources to try to find maps that work for District 5. So if you're curious as to what I'm looking at, contact me, jeterdistrict5@gmail. I'll be glad to sit down with you, meet with you, show you kind of what I'm looking at. But there's that one website. There may be others that other people know about, but present them, email them. If you have not even maps, it doesn't even have to be in a map form. If you have thoughts, concerns, ideas, it needs to come before us. The majority, as I think somebody said, Attorney Taylor mentioned at one of our meetings that this was the first time in history that he has seen the volume of public engagement. That's speaking something, but we need more. But we need more specific things in terms of what you are wanting to see in terms of your community and your district. So it doesn't even have to be in a map form.
Just a quick follow-up. So am I understanding that even though the public is voicing their concerns, and we heard the concerns across the state, that this commission is not coming up with other, versions that would meet what people are asking for?
No, they're not given. So we as a commission, we had the authority, I guess to say, of how we wanted to go about this redistricting process. We could have developed a separate committee outside of the commission, and that committee could have, I would encourage you to go on Shelby County or Knox County. They have a wonderful redistricting format. Their committee members consist of school board members, community people, commissioners, and stuff like that. So we too had that option, but we chose to have the committee at large, the whole commission. Although we have made improvements, do not let that fool you, because even the improvements have not been by no means perfect or have given, in my opinion, you guys, the public, what's needed, and frankly has even given us as commissioners what we've needed. Just to give you an example, tomorrow we have our commission meeting. I have not gotten anything from the GIS office in terms of any new maps. I was told as an elected official by my constituents of District 5 that I can't even contact the GIS office to make changes or requests, that I have to send that directly to the chairman. So my hand as an elected official is even tied. So I can't even, if you come to me and say, I want this map, Commissioner Jeter, for District 5, I can't do it. That's the type of stuff that's going on in Hamilton County.
And I would say, to your credit, that this is by design. You have to know that this is by design, that you haven't gotten anything, so that when the meeting comes up and is on tape, you know, you don't have time to formulate your thoughts and see what's going on, and then they're going to quickly try to vote on that. And that's why I'm stressing it is very imperative that the people of District 5 and District 4 show up, because we're going to lose black representation on that council if we're not careful, on the commission if we're not careful.
Yeah. Dennis?
Thanks, Commissioner G. I don't know if this is entered in for public comments. I didn't actually come to make any comments, but after watching the videos and seeing the pain and passion on your face, you know, I just want to thank you, because I live in your district and I know you fight for us, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'm with the Equity Alliance, the regional director for Chattanooga and Knoxville, and we have a policy manager out of Memphis, Kendra Lee, who is a part of that redistricting committee that Shelby County put together. Of course, they're a county that's predominantly black, right? And what we're not saying in these meetings and these hearings, even when we're with our white allies and our you know, people who are fighting for us, it's not partisan, it's racial. You know, you have to go back and look and be like, well, who are they drawing out? Who is it impacting? It's black people. And I get so angry when we come into these crowds that we don't call it what it is. It's institutionalized racism, it's white supremacy at its best. We no longer live in a two-party system, people. We have one party that does not believe in democracy, because what's happening is that when you count people out of a system, that's not democracy. I don't care if you're white, black, blue, but when you purposely draw people out of participating, that's illegal. It's unconstitutional. It's inhumane. And part of what our organization, what we do, we are an unapologetically black organization. We have 2 strong black females who are fighting this redistricting battle in Nashville. And I'm telling you, we will go to hearings, we will show up at county commission, and we've already lost. This is a distraction. It was a distraction when, you know, they were telling us when we combined, when they were telling us we were going to give you the city commission seats, you know, and they had to sue. And so I want to encourage you guys that, yes, it's important to have public input. That's important, so we can be on record. So thank you for letting us to allow our comments. But the call to action does not stop there, because you're going to go to county commission. Kathleen Jeter is going to come back to us. These maps have already been proposed and written up by groups that meetings and hearings we haven't even been a part of. It's already predetermined. She's the only elected official here. Where are the black elected officials, by the way? And we need to hold people accountable and call it for what it is. I don't want to talk about partisan. It's not about partisan anymore, because there are white Democrats in Oak Ridge who are being drawn out and put into other districts. It is a power grab by a party who does not believe in democracy. And this has all been happening historically since we elected a black man named Barack Obama. And they have looked and said, oh my God, they are empowered. They are activated. They took Georgia. They're in Houston voting like crazy. And so we've seen the surge of these voter suppression laws. So what do? They said, well, we're going to have hearings. No, we need to file lawsuits. And I'm telling you, and this is cute, thank you for doing this. I really don't care about hearings, because the only people that are hearing us are white men who've already drawn maps for us. While we're being disenfranchised, we're being taxed without representation. We can't send people to state legislatures and state Senate seats. Chattanooga does it. We were supposed to have a state Senate seat representing black people in Hamilton County, and they drew us out. We don't have that. They took away one of our state house seats. We don't have that. And nobody's saying anything. We have to take this issue, this immoral issue, legally. And so I encourage you to follow organizations like the Equity Alliance. We've sued the state twice successfully. We registered 40,000 people in Memphis, and Trey Haggard came and said, you can't count those because you misspelled names, and tried to disenfranchise people from voting right here in Tennessee recently. We sued them and we won. And I'm telling you, we as organizations, NAACP, Captain, my organization, Brian Bush is running for League of Women Voters, we have to get together and not have hearings. We have to get together and start looking at this, the legality of this. Other states have had to sue and redraw their maps. I'm not going to wait 10 years for them to decide to give me freedom and liberty. You can sue now. We can challenge this in the Supreme Court. I think Virginia did this, and they had to go back and redraw their districts. And so my call to action is they're going to vote for this 11th district. Surprise? They're going to vote for it. What do we do after that? We just wait 10 years? And so my call to action for you is to get with organizations that are looking at the legality of this, including in Congressional District 3, where we are just drawn out of where communities of color, we don't have any representation, none. And it's not partisan, it's racial. I want you to remember that. It has nothing to do with Republicans, even though that's where the racial divide seems to be swinging. It is a racial thing, and it has been historically happened since some of us have known. And unfortunately, we had a president who did a dog whistle, and now elections have consequences, and we're suffering from it. And we don't have to suffer for another 10 years to wait to redistricting come around. And so I encourage you guys to get with activists. I know Marie Mott is an activist. A lot of you are activists. Let's get together and get a legal clinic going, and whatever filings we need to do, let's get that to the Tennessee Supreme Court, and let's fight it as far as we can, because that's the only way we have had victories in the civil rights movement, is when we took it to the courtrooms, not these hearings. Okay? So anyway, again, I'm Dennis Clark. I'm with the Equity Alliance. Thank you guys for coming out tonight.
Sure. Hold on, wait on the mic so everybody can hear you.
Thank you. Is there legal precedence that's already been set from a historical standpoint? Because I haven't looked into this already, to Dennis's point. Has there been legal precedent set of us, any section of East Tennessee or the state, of cities or counties already suing the state for gerrymandering or stacking, cracking, and packing? Is there any precedence or legal example for that, to your knowledge?
So there was a lawsuit in 2010, but it didn't go anywhere, basically. So there has been precedent that there has been sued, but you know, I'm going to let Dr. Franklin talk about this because this is his wheelhouse. But there has been precedent, particularly in other states. We've seen that in North Carolina they sued successfully. There are specific limitations on what you can sue about. You mentioned, many of you have mentioned that partisan gerrymandering has been, you know, you cannot sue on a federal level for that. You can sue, I think, on the state level, but you know, you cannot sue on the federal level, which is where you really have the best chance. So, you know, anything that's a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1965, particularly around racial barriers, is where you have the most opportunity to sue in these type of circumstances, which is why, this is another reason why we're having these hearings, because you really can't have a lawsuit, or you can't have conversations about what to do if you don't have evidence and conversations from people about what they want and what they need. So, you know, if somebody draws a map and there's nothing that defutes that map, you don't have any kind of public testimony, you don't have people on record, you don't have people that have said what they need and what they want, then really it's hard to make a basis on a lawsuit when you don't have that. So, you know, part of this conversation is really trying to understand what people need and what they want out of these congressional and state and local maps. And a big part of why we're having these hearings. Dr. Franklin, you want to come up and add to what I said, because I may have messed something up.
Yeah, I would say that if you look at the Voting Rights Act, probably a significant portion of the voting rights disputes in federal courts are over legal disputes. Here in Chattanooga is ground zero for some of those disputes. In Tennessee, there was a case at the state legislative level that basically gave rural West the opportunity to, and I'm using the word opportunity deliberately in terms of the legal framework, the opportunity of African Americans to elect someone As Mattia Powell stated, the federal courts have concluded that partisan gerrymandering is okay. Even though partisan, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to that. Even though partisan gerrymandering really intersects with race, so to speak. But the courts have basically said that partisan gerrymandering is okay. And as Mattia Powell stated, that although it appears that these are just hearings, you really can't make a case for any legal claim unless you actually have public testimony or have public hearings or a public narrative. Some of the groups here, we have partnered with also voting rights litigation groups and civil rights groups and so forth. Not to say it's going to go there, but just to make this point that you can't. It's very hard to move forward on legal claims if you don't actually bring it to the public and allow for public testimony. Otherwise, it's just your opinion, so to speak. So, having said all of that, there's just so many different twists and turns with how, what kind of court case you can bring, what jurisdiction you can bring it in, and those kinds of things. But yes, there's a lot of precedent for bringing court cases if it has to come to that.
Well, I don't want to risk losing the African-American representation that we have in city and county. But every time I look at the current map of the districts and the population demographics in each one of those districts, I can't help but think, and I know this is illegal now in the real estate industry, but what's the difference between redistricting and redlining? When you look at the map?
Well, redlining deals with, people often will say, if you kind of go to community conversations, they'll use redlining to talk about redistricting and vice versa. But right. Redlining typically deals with housing patterns and how housing is drawn. Redistricting deals with political boundaries explicitly, how those political boundaries are drawn.
But in that, you've got housing, right?
In that, you could have redistricting, the way district boundaries are drawn, can overlap with redlining. It can overlap with a whole range of things. So, yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, and I know nothing about this, our only out for this is legal. It's the only way, because it appears to me that they're going to do what they want to do. And what they want to do is not good for me. And it appears that our only way of dealing with this is to the courts. Am I wrong in that?
Well,
they're not going to change their mind. I'm hearing that they've already drawn it. They've already drawn districts.
Well, truthfully, it's probably best for me not to speak about any legal claim, because legal claims for a lot of different reasons. But and I will say that around the country, there's been a lot of legal claims that have been brought around particular courts. But again, I want to emphasize the point that although it may appear as if I'm kind of drawing from a new book on Fannie Lou Hamer called "Until I'm Free," it may appear that public testimony is a dead end, but to kind of recap, to retell the story of Fannie Lou Hamer and her specific claim about public testimony. Public testimony is really important in really articulating the needs of the community, and you can't bring a legal claim unless you actually have people actually telling where their interests are.
Before you go.
I just want to add just one comment just to kind of give a little different context, because I know it's very easy to feel very cynical about this process. And certainly I think you in Hamilton County are feeling a rather bitter taste in your mouth about this. But I will say around the country that we have seen that public testimony can change the way district lines work. And so I think that you always have to start in any discussion about how political boundaries are drawn with the idea that your input can make a difference, and then be prepared to do something afterwards. But you really need to make the effort, and you need to believe in the best interests of people and hope that you can go that route first.
I totally agree that the public hearing and opportunities to hold public officials accountable is key. So whether it's not just District 4 and 5 that we're concerned about, we're essentially concerned about, but we're also concerned that other county commissioners are saying publicly, well, no one's calling me about redistricting as an issue, so it is incumbent upon us to make sure that if we live in those different districts, whether it's 7, I live in 8, some people live in, we need to make sure that those commissioners understand that we want this process slowed down. Mm-hmm. So that's the phone call, that's the email. We can do that tonight.
My bad, I'm sorry. Has there been any attempt, because I know there have been several groups that have come to the county commission meeting. One of the things that I'm seeing missing is the press. Has anybody invited the press to be present to actually cover and get some of this information on the news?
Well, they were here earlier, so
okay.
There was 2 news stations here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, they were here earlier. At least I'm not sure if they captured much of this, but there are a lot of people watching online, by the way, too. So I'm not sure who all those folks are. We had about 41 people so far listening online. So there are people also watching this that aren't able to be here in person. And I just want to lift up, as Dennis, sir, is that your name? Equity Alliance is a big partner of ours, so I appreciate you. We'll have to come out and meet you after this. But you did mention something about, you know, and it's not a correction, but I will just say this. We've been fighting for this not since 2016, but since the founding of this nation, right? We have been fighting for this and trying to expand the franchise since this nation was founded. It is inherently what we've been doing for our generations, and the only reason why many people, not just black people, have the franchise at this point. And so we're just gonna have to continue that fight, and this is a critical part of it, and I appreciate all of you being here and appreciate your passion around this, because it is kind of wonky. You know, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, they're gonna draw district lines. People kind of tune out when we talk about redistricting. One, is complicated, which it shouldn't be, but it is. When you start thinking about all the things that you have to know to actually understand what redistricting is, most people don't understand that. So, you know, it's hard for folks to try to get engaged with it. But it is really the genesis of how power is built. You know, these lines determine your representation. It determines how resources flow to your communities, not just, you know, your voting power, but how resources actually are flowing to hospital resources, roads, schools. All of that is impacted by this moment. And I think it's really hard for people to understand how all of that works, but we've got to try to make them understand, and like at least that they got to be engaged at some level, because it is complicated, and I get that, but this is really, really important to everything that we hold dear in our communities. If we don't get this right, then we have to suffer the next 10 years with districts that doesn't look like our communities. And we've talked about that. I've heard it through testimony tonight about what you guys have endured in East Tennessee and how your districts have been gerrymandered at the state level and even at the local level. And you just imagine what that looks like if you have to endure that 10 years. I can remember 10 years ago, things were completely different. 10 years ago, we didn't have a voter ID law, right? So I think there's a lot of things that can happen over the next 10 years. And I know it seems like we're running out of time, but you do still have time, as the commissioner said, to really engage in this process at the local level. The state process is really just kind of gearing up. So, you know, once you complete this fight here, you got to keep moving towards the state level. They're going to be drawing your state Senate maps, your House maps, and your congressional maps that we've heard about tonight. So, you know, it is a broad process, but we've got to continue to be engaged, because if we're not watching and we're not holding people accountable, then they will do what they want, right? So I really appreciate all of you being here and the passion that you've shown tonight. I'm going to open up the floor for Debbie or Sekou if they want to say any closing remarks, or if there's anybody else, because I don't want to leave out any questions or comments, because it's really important that we capture all of it.
I just want to say that if you know of other people who want to submit some comments, if they want to submit them, written comments, or video, same way that they were received tonight. We would be happy to have them and to include them when we submit them to the state legislature in early November.
Is Reverend Ann Jones? Okay, I bring it to you. Just before closing out, I do want to make sure that, this is our third hearing across in the state. Our first one was in Clarksville. Our second one was in Memphis, and this is our third hearing. And I do want to give a special thanks to, at least on my end, to President Gloria Sweetlove of the Tennessee NAACP, and also to Daphne Nelson, who basically part of the Red Sea for us and trying to make this happen. And also the flyers, I want to give a shout out to Agnes Gray, who is a Chattanooga native, who also is working on redistricting and has been trained by the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, a student participatory redistricting project. So I also want to thank Pastor Caudle for opening his church, and I will turn it over to Reverend Ann Pierre Jones.
We're most grateful for everyone coming out tonight and voicing your concerns about the redistricting. It is very important that we get together. Too bad we don't have as many people here to speak on redistricting, but there's a reason for that. Most people do not understand redistricting. They do not understand the census. They do not understand that the reason they're in the condition that they're in is because of the census, the redistricting, and how resources are applied to the people in particular areas. I called the GIS office and asked them to come and speak to the NAACP, and they would not do it because Chairwoman Sabrina Smedley told them no. Okay, they do not work for her. We pay their salaries. Therefore, I think she has breached that particular situation. When I talked with her, she said, well, I only have 2 employees, so I can't tell them what to do. Yet she did tell them what to do, and I have evidence that she did. The person told me exactly. So we have to be aware to call people out for what they do. When they do good, we should say good things about them. But when they do things that are not in the interest of all the taxpayers, then they're wrong. In Hamilton County, we pay taxes to the county. We also pay taxes to the city. Therefore, we have just as much right to get services from the county as we do from the city. But most people complain about the city services and never hold the county accountable for what they do for our tax dollars. So we need to be more aware, and if we could just get one person to come along with us so we can explain to them the application of redistricting and what it will mean to them in their lives, I think that would be something good for us to do. I appreciate all the people who've been going over the state trying to help us out, because they really are. That's what they're doing. They're taking their time, their resources to help us. So we really thank you very much for coming, and we bid you Godspeed as far as getting to other parts of the community, because we hear from the other people what's going on in their areas. And we need to know that, because we are one. We're Tennessee, so we are one. So So thank you again for coming. Thank you to Reverend Caudle, who is co-chair of our religious committee for the NAACP Chattanooga-Hamilton County branch. We appreciate him. He has really come in. He's gung-ho about doing good in the community, and we thank him very much. And to the IT people, we thank you for taking your time. You're doing an excellent job. I love sound. The sound is perfect. We thank you so much. Dr. Seiko. Well, we always pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for allowing us to come out. We thank you for the information that we have gotten tonight, and we hope that what people go away and say will be beneficial to all of us. We give it all over to you, but we will do what we need to do in Jesus' name. Amen.